Welcome to the Black Box App Podcast. I'm your host, Kenneth L. Johnson. Extremely excited today to have a gentleman on with us, Mr. AJ Link. Let me just break it down. I told you one of the reasons I wanted to do this show is because I believe within the Black Box App and within the Black Box App Podcast, it is our responsibility to introduce you to people out there that maybe you didn't know existed. Maybe you didn't understand that we were doing this type of work. And when I break this down, you're going to understand where I'm headed here. Mr. Link is the director of the Task Force on Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity in Aerospace. You heard me right, Aerospace. AJ Link, welcome to the Black Box App Podcast, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this, since we talked about it. So I'm really excited to be here. I really appreciate the time.
I'm thrilled to have you here with us today. Really excited to learn a little more about the work that it is that you do. But before we take a deep dive into that, if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about the journey. Like, how'd you get here?
It was a long and winding road. It wasn't a straight path. I went to school. I got a philosophy degree at USF, which is in Florida, where I'm from, and I was kind of drifting. Right?
University.
Yeah,
of
the University of
Florida.
South. The University of South Florida. It's in Tampa, which is in the middle of Florida. But I got my degree there, and I'd always loved space. I love Star Wars, Star Trek, all the sci-fi and futuristic stuff. And, I wanted to be an astronaut. So I was like, I'm going to be a pilot, right? Because that's until recently, that's how you would get to be an astronaut, right? You go through the military and be a pilot. And it didn't work out, right? I'm not military material, I guess, but it didn't work out. And so I was like, man, what am I going to do? And I was drifting for a few years. I was working odd jobs, figuring out what to do, where to go. And then, I decided to go to law school. I was one of those people who was like, I'll never go to law school. I don't want to do it. I know a lot of folks are like, that's my dream since I was like 2 years old. I want to be a lawyer. But that wasn't me. I was like, I don't have anything else to do, so why not? And when I was there, I was really big on human rights. I have a background in doing community advocacy, diversity and inclusion work, and I was really focused on human rights and trying to make the world a better place. But I still kind of had that itch about space, and lo and behold, there's space law, and I was like, let me get in on this, and so I took the space law classes. I was president of the Space Law Society. And, I was like, who's doing human rights in space, right? Who's looking to protect people long-term in space? And no one was really doing that. And I was really fortunate. I did a little bit of writing. I did a few presentations. I caught the eye of some people. And I was looking, what the next step would be. And after you graduate with your JD, you can get an LLM. And I was deciding, should I get an LLM in human rights and put the space twist on it? Or should I get an LLM in space law and, and put the human rights twist on it? And the University of Mississippi, which is where I'm getting my LLM now, has a Center for Air and Space Law, and they were kind of deciding what they could do to be different, and they were talking about this task force idea. I was like, if y'all can hook me up with that, I'll choose you, right? My family's from Mississippi, so I have that connection to Mississippi, right? My mom lives in Mississippi, so it was a chance for me to get to reconnect with her and kind of see her. And, I say see her, but she housed me for a little bit while I was down there, pulling the mom thing, even, after 3 decades, still housing me. But they were like, we're doing this task force. We don't really know where we're going. I was like, let me be a part of it. I'll do whatever. So when I first signed up, it wasn't like I was going to be the director. I was just going to help build it. And we were going to find someone. And then, I was doing all the work. I was like, doing the meetings, going out, talking to folks, kind of, amping us up and boosting the profile. And they were like, do you want to be the director? I was like, yeah, sure. Let's do this. And so now, what I do is, I try to get historically marginalized groups into the aerospace industry. When a lot of folks think about space and going to space, unfortunately, it's still a lot of white dudes, right? You're seeing a little bit more diversity in the people who are going up now. But as far as space tourism goes, it's still super wealthy people. And what I want to do is I want to reach marginalized communities, especially the Black community, and be like, you can be in this space, right? You can be an engineer in this space. You can be an entrepreneur or a businessman in this space, right? You can do so many different things in aerospace. And we don't want to get left behind yet again, right? We don't want them to have a whole industry built out and we're still like, oh, I didn't know that was possible. So what I'm trying to do is reach the kids, reach high schoolers, college students, even graduate students, like saying, hey, are you taking your talents and thinking about putting it into aerospace? But at the same time, we're going to these companies like, who are you hiring? Who are you recruiting? Who are you elevating within your company? What are the smaller businesses that you're working with and partnering with when you're giving out these subcontracts? Are you making sure that everyone's included in this growing space? And I'm based here in the U.S. We do a lot of work in the U.S., but this is broader than that, right? Like we need more African countries getting into the aerospace sector. There are a lot of folks in Africa doing good work in the space sector, but we need more, right? Like we need our people out in this industry doing the thing.
Man, when we first had our first conversation, that was one of the things that impressed me about you, your global perspective on this. But then it made me start thinking, right? Because you were speaking about not wanting to see another industry created that we're not taking part in, that could be the future of work on some levels, right? So examples might be, say, fintech or crypto, right? And then the metaverse, like people are really diving in on some of this technology, and we want to be a part of that, right? There's money there, there's opportunities there. But when you start speaking about space, initially, I started thinking he's talking about it as an industry, but then there's some pieces of you that are speaking about actually being in space, like outer space. Like when you speak about the tourism piece of that and all of that. So you speak it not only as an industry, but just looking at it holistically.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to, right? It is an industry. People have to make money, people have to survive, right? People need jobs. We need to acknowledge that. And so we need to get people those jobs, whether those are skilled labor jobs, whether those are entry-level jobs in management, white collar, blue collar. We definitely need that. But long term, right, people are going to be in space. I think for better or worse, whether folks agree with it or not, that's kind of where we're going to end up. And part of the work that I do is kind of shifting this perspective of Earth isn't special in space. We just happen to be here, right? And eventually Earth is going to be just another place that we are in space. It'll always be home, right? Like, like I didn't grow up to Africa. I've been to Africa, but like Africa isn't like, my home, but it's still the motherland, right? Like people will be like, my family's from Earth, right? Whether or not they super identify with that or not, like that's where it's going to be, but it's going to be part of a larger cosmic system of where human beings are. And so that's a long time off. I'll be honest with you. That's like 100, 200, maybe even more years off. But right now the industry is there, right? People have jobs. People are building rockets. There are schools that are focusing on rocket propulsion, right? Like I had some talks with the group over at Morgan State, I think, and they got a NASA contract for a special type of propulsion rocket. Like people are doing this work now, which is important. We need to be there. We need to be one making decisions and helping shape it so that we don't have, the kind of system and industry that whether intentionally or accidentally excludes us, like, but we also need to get in on the ground floor to make sure that we don't get left behind, like quite literally.
I'm glad you mentioned Morgan. I've been having some conversations about doing something there in relationship to Black Box. This could be the conversation. We should do that live there on campus one day. That'd be amazing. So I'm going to circle back with you on that one. Listen, real quick, I'm thinking geography here. Cape Canaveral's in Florida, right?
It is.
How far from Tampa, and have you been?
So I have been as a kid. I want to say Cape Canaveral is maybe like 2 hours, 2.5 from Tampa. I was actually just in Florida. I was in Orlando for a week, and one of the days I was like, should we go? Shouldn't we go? But the tickets are mad expensive now, right? Really? I guess as a kid you don't realize how expensive the tickets are because you just go, right? And it's like it's free. But now that I had to pay for it, I was like $75 for this. So I didn't go when I was in Florida a couple months ago. But yeah, I have been. I haven't seen a launch there, but
Okay.
I've been. And I live in DC currently, the Air and Space Museum in DC, but then kind of the broader hangar out in Virginia. I've been to those places. I love it, right? I'm not a technical person. I don't know the ins and outs. I don't know the engineering or the math about space, but I know that I want to be up there eventually, right? Even if it's just for a few seconds, a few minutes, even if it's a one-way trip and I die out there, hopefully one day I'll get to be able to see the pale blue dot and have the overview effect, which is something that I really wish I could experience before I die.
I think sometimes things just happen for all the right reasons, and some of it's positioning. I do honestly believe that you positioned yourself well to make that happen soon. Like prime example, I guess I was reading or I saw on TV, like Michael Strahan is going up on one of the next missions, I guess. So he's positioned himself for that opportunity. And I believe you're positioning not only yourself, but a lot of other people, Black and brown people, for that opportunity as well. So kudos to you and the work that you're doing. Listen, all right, so here's what I want to speak about. From a career standpoint, and as we talk about exploring careers in space, and I know you've brought it to my attention that it's wide ranging, but if you had to break down maybe like 3 different silos where people probably need to focus in and operate that will position them well to get a career, or at least to get on the radar of individuals that are hiring in that sector, what would you suggest?
Oh man, I can't do 3. I'm not even gonna try.
All right, well,
First,
just give me a few.
the first advice I would give is go with your strengths. You can do almost anything in space. If you're an artist, you can design art for space companies, right? You can help craft the designs and the logos or things like that, right? All companies need that. You may not be in space, but that's in the space industry, right? So like art, obviously engineering, like welding, people have to build these things put together, engineering, design. Like there's so many different things. You could be a scientist, right? You could be someone who studies the physics, the math. There's so many different things. Maybe you don't know any of that, right? Kind of like me. And I'm not very artistic, but maybe you have good leadership skills. Maybe you have good entrepreneurial skills, so you can build the company out. You can hire and identify the right talent. I don't think there's one silo or this or that. Like I got into space through law. And space law is still a very niche field, right? There's like I don't even know. I would probably say like less than like 200, maybe 300 like real space lawyers in the world right now, maybe. And there might be more, but there aren't people who are like really doing that, right? And so like you could do whatever. Like I don't know, like if you wanted to be a podcaster, you could think about having the first podcast in space, the first long-term podcast in space, or you could just do a podcast about space. There are tons of podcasts out there about the space industry. The way I try to pitch people is like anything that you could ever think about doing, you could probably do it in space and make money doing it. And right now the industry is still young enough where you could probably get in and take up that space for yourself and make a name for yourself doing it. Obviously, there are players in there right now, and there are people who are doing this work, but it's like, it's not saturated by any means, right? You take your talent, whatever you love to do. And if, you feel like you're not getting, the space or the recognition that you want in one sector, maybe you should try it out in the space sector.
Man, I love how you think, man. It's amazing, your thought process. And here, I'm talking about maybe us doing a podcast at Morgan. Nah, we need to do one in space. That's what we need to do. We need to do a space podcast. That'd be amazing. Look, so you pursued a career in space law, something I had never even heard of until meeting you and having a conversation with you. Just for our audience, can you give them a perspective on kind of just an overview on kind of what that is to you?
So it's just law. Once you get past 100 kilometers or however you want, the limitations kind of an issue in space law. But once you're above the atmosphere and you're off Earth, there are laws out there. There aren't a ton, and part of, I guess, what I really love and what I'm really interested in, this is a little bit of my creative side, is we can create better systems of law in space, and maybe that helps us with some of the problems that we've had here on Earth, right? Maybe we can create better ways of being human beings and living as a society and better cultures uh, to survive in space. And that can give us insight into how we can be better human beings here on Earth, right? Space is an incredibly harsh place to live. We're not built to survive in space right now. At least here in the U.S. context, and a lot of the Western context is very individualistic in terms of how you survive. How you get your money, how you climb the ladder and all these things. But like in space, none of that really matters, right? In space, it's like survival, it's community, it's love, it's humanity. And not to be like too starry-eyed about what could happen, because space again is really harsh. But I think it gives us a chance of a new perspective on how to live life. And maybe that gives us just a little bit of insight on how to be better human beings here right now.
Man, I love it. I love it. So speaking of being better human beings right now, I know you're working with some youth groups, I believe, and some student groups, supporting them and kind of getting the messaging out about the work and about the opportunities. Can you speak to a little bit of that work that you're doing as well, just to introduce others to it?
Yeah, honestly, that's one of the most frustrating parts of the gig right now. And it's not the kids, it's the schools, it's the teachers, it's the institutions, right? That they aren't dreaming big enough. And I don't know if that's intentional, right? I don't know if that's just because of where they are and like, we just need to get these kids to be able to read and write and move them on, right? We need to have these kids focusing on getting the 20-year career job to set themselves up and potentially set their family up, right? Which I'm not trying to shade that at all. That's I respect that, but I also, at least from my perspective, like, why not give them an opportunity, right? When you have a 4 and 5-year-old and you ask them what they want to be, which I'm not totally fond of, but when you ask them, they have dreams, right? They have big, broad dreams, and when they're that age, we normally don't tell them no, right?
Right.
So why not say, you could be in space? Why not say you could work in space? Why not say like you can do these things? I think a lot of time realism and the reality of the situation of a lot of our people gets in the way of dreaming and what can be, right? And I'm by no means saying that everyone needs to do space, and like not everyone loves space like I do. I respect that. Like, some people want to get a good mechanic job or a good plumber job, set up their own shop, make 100, 200,000 running their own business, and that's their dream. And I think that's totally respectable. Like, more power to you, go out and get it. But like, we shouldn't tell people they can't do things. We shouldn't tell people that that's not realistic, right? Like, I am not what the typical person who does space law looks like, right? I'm not the typical person in the space industry. I didn't get there the typical way, and I don't do things how they're quote unquote supposed to be done. So why are we limiting the creativity of and the diversity of humanity by telling our students like, this isn't something that you should think about, or it's not worth investing in, or that's a faraway dream. I like, let them find their own way. I found my own way. It took a while. I'm not the most creative person. I'm not the smartest person. I'm not the most talented person, right? But I found my way, and I found a way to do what I love. And honestly, it's because no one told me I couldn't. They just said, I don't know. Can you do that? Are you allowed to do that? When I was like, who's doing human rights in space? Who's looking to build out this thing? Everyone's like, I don't know. No one told me I couldn't do it. And this is not to say it's easy, right? Like, it could be hard, it could be difficult. But again, if this is something someone wants to do, or they could potentially fall in love with, why would we stop them? I'm okay with people failing if they're trying to do what they love, right? It's okay. It's okay to fail in a pursuit of a passion.
For sure. For sure. It's the Black Box App Podcast. I'm your host, Kenneth L. Johnson. We're here today with Mr. AJ Link, Director of the Task Force on Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity in Aerospace. Man, listen, so I want to kind of transition here because this is a part of the podcast where I like to speak to SMEs, subject matter experts like yourself, about what advice they would give. And this doesn't have to be directly related to aerospace, but just advice you would give from a career perspective for entry level, mid, and senior level individuals looking at their career paths and pursuits.
Oh man, I don't think I've ever really thought about that. So I do consulting. Right? I don't think I've ever really thought about it like that. I take a more holistic approach.
How to?
Again, that's just it's because that hasn't been my experience. Right? I haven't done the latter type of thing. Right? I've gone zigging and zagging and then circular, and I've started and built nonprofits and foundations, and I've also come in and been like at the very bottom of a hierarchical structure, and I'm just doing the grunt work, right? I think for me, and this is what I tell people when I'm consulting, is like the first thing you have to do is you have to find yourself, right? I say be unique, be authentic to the best of your ability, and then we build from that, right? When I talk about rooting your work, a lot of times it's specifically about advocacy, but more importantly, like your life's work. What do you root your work in? I root my work in accessibility, trying to make as many spaces accessible for as many people as possible, making myself accessible, not thinking I'm too good for something or, too busy to connect with someone. But I also root that in grace, giving folks the grace to come to me and grow and learn from me, but also giving myself grace when I struggle to learn and grow from other people in a way. And then legacy, right? What legacy am I building for everyone behind me? And I think that last part, legacy, is really important when you talk about entry level, middle management, and lower level. Everywhere I go, I try to be the most authentic person that I can be because I know I'm different. I'm not different in the same way that everyone else is different, but if I can get into a space, if I can get into, aerospace, being me, being Black, being autistic, wearing hats to meetings, not wearing ties all the time, and people accept that and they recognize my skills and my talents beyond that, then maybe the next person who comes through who maybe doesn't talk the right way, right, or doesn't dress the right way, or doesn't do the things that they're supposed to do, maybe they don't have the same pushback that I got because I made that space better, right? And you can do that entry level, middle level, upper level, or management. But also, going back down, around going back to grace, right? As a manager, you can give folks the grace to say, hey, maybe they're a good employee, it's just not good in the way that I thought, or good in the way that I expected, right? Maybe they have talents, just not in the way I expected. We have rules, we have regulations, people need to do all these things to keep their jobs, and I totally respect that. But I think in general, we need to, again, allow for creativity and diversity, right? I think, specifically on a level of just Black Americans, our talent is incredible, right? Everything that people love about the United States of America is through Black people, right? Whether that's culture, whether that's the idea of freedom and perseverance and struggle, that's all exemplified through Black Americans, right? And that's always taken from us, and exported and commodified, right? And repackaged and resold. But like, we're always left behind because we're not good enough, allegedly, right? Or we're not the right type of good enough, or we're not the right type of, professional. We don't speak properly and all this. But nah, right? Like, and I know we're getting kind of deep into it,
Oh, I
but
love
a lot of times some of us leave our own behind, right? We're like, no, we have to speak proper. We have to go to this top university. We have to go into, these rich white spaces and prove that we are worthy, but at the expense of a lot of times alienating our own, leaving our own behind. Like, and I'm not trying to shade these folks at all, because, we need Black professionals. We need people who are going out and doing it and showing Black excellence in a specific type of way to get recognition. But part of me is like, whose recognition are we seeking, right? Whose validation are we seeking, right? Like, I grew up pretty well off by all circumstances, right? But like, that doesn't make me any better or any worse than a person who grew up in a different type of struggle, in an extremely rural struggle, like my family in Mississippi, right? Extremely rural, extremely poor, or someone from an inner city in like New York City or Boston, right? I think, and this isn't necessarily on Black folks, because I think the larger society does this, but we need to allow people to be themselves in a way that lets them express their creativity, their individuality, and their brilliance, and value it, and not think that value, production, worthiness comes in a specific type of package, right? So to circle back and answer the question fully, my advice is to be as authentic as you can, make as much space for yourself as you can, and as you're creating that space, pull as many people up with you as possible, right? And part of that is pulling people up and letting them go past you, right? I'm not going to be the greatest person to ever do aerospace that's Black, right? That's not going to be me. But maybe I can create space for that person.
Yes.
Maybe all the groundwork that I'm doing now in like 30, 40, 50 years, we have someone who's black, who's the face of space, like Elon Musk is now, right? Because I don't really vibe with him, but like maybe the little bit of work that I'm doing right now helps to build that for someone else, right? And I think something that I carry with me, again, talking about legacy, is society grows great when old people plant trees whose shade they'll never sit in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not looking to build a better world for me, which would be nice, but it's not doable. Like it takes a long time, but maybe I can give those ideas to someone who has a little bit more resources and has more talent than me and has a better network than me that could reach another person, right? And so I think as career advice, be authentic as you come in. Don't give up things. I again, I understand people have to sacrifice those things to kind of get in, make their money, whatever, but try to be as authentic as you can when you get in, and retain that authenticity as you're climbing up, and be sure to pull people up with you. And don't be afraid of difference and people being different and talented in ways that maybe you didn't expect.
Man, authenticity is your thing, my friend. I can feel it in you. I love that about you. Man, I'm pulling for you big time. I can't wait to talk to you once you come back from space. It's going to happen. It's going to happen, and I can't wait for that day. Listen, speaking of future stuff, what's in the immediate future for AJ Link? What you have going on?
Oh man, there's work and conferences. COVID's still here. It may be even coming back more intense, but people are like trying to do things in person now. I know for me, a lot of things going virtual helped me out because I could do a lot more things for free instead of having to pay for these plane tickets and hope to get reimbursed.
Yeah.
But I think something that I'm really big on is just being where you are and doing the work that day. I know we were talking, I think before we started recording, about how I got meetings mixed up, and that's because I wake up and I check my calendar that day and we go right. I'm really big on being present and just going wherever I feel like I'm being pushed, and some people call it being called, being led, whatever you want to call it, and doing my work there for that day. So maybe I won't do space for the rest of my life. That's fine. Maybe I don't do diversity and inclusion consulting. That's fine. Maybe I end up teaching. Maybe I end up teaching math or reading somewhere. I'm completely open to that. So I don't know what's next. I know I got my projects that I'm working on now.
Yes.
I'm doing space projects, I'm doing law projects, I'm doing disability advocacy projects, but I don't know where that ends up. You're saying I end up in space. I hope I apply to all the things. We're looking for people to go to space. We need volunteers. Like, yo, my name's in there, bro. Pick me.
I love it.
Pick me. I'll sign the waiver. My partner doesn't really like that, and I don't think my family likes that either. But I'm like, yo, I will go. One-way ticket. Yo, put me on the ship. I'm gone. Yeah. I love all y'all, but I need to do this.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, you were very present today, my friend. So excited. Your energy is it's contagious, man, and it's very, very important, because I think your energy will indeed attract that next person, that face of space and space travel. Let our listeners know how they can stay in touch with the work of Mr. AJ Link, or if they want to reach out in general, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, so definitely LinkedIn if you're trying to reach out and do professional things or see what I'm working on. That's where like kind of all my stuff goes. Just AJ Link on LinkedIn. I don't think there's too many of them, and there's definitely not a ton of black AJ Links. So I usually pop up, and then you can find me on social media. My @ on Twitter and Instagram is at KNILIRAB AJ, and that's just my name backwards.
Okay.
So if you flip those letters around, you'll see my government name. Y'all can have that personal information. But that's how you find me. Also, feel free to reach out. Like I said, I try to be super accessible, answer as many questions as possible. If it's on the weekend, you may not get a response because I just put up this boundary. I'm talking about growth, right? Not being accessible on the weekends and kind of enjoying where I am on the weekends. But Monday through Friday, I'll usually get back to you.
And you're going to have to teach me that weekend thing one day, because I'm not good at it. I'm always working. But listen, again, I want to thank you for joining me today on the Black Box App podcast. Again, I think you're amazing, my friend. I'm so glad we crossed paths. Looking forward to just watching you do what you do. AJ Link, thank you so very much from the team at Black Box.